Hey everyone, I'm Catherine and welcome to my channel. So my social media has been going off with respect to the Ethan Crumbley case, and what makes this case a little bit different to every other high school shooting case is that the police prosecutor has decided to charge his parents, Jennifer and James, with involuntary manslaughter. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the basic facts of the case, Ethan showed up to high school on the 30th of November. He had a gun with him, which his dad had previously bought for him, and he ended up shooting dead 4 students and injuring 6 other people and a teacher. So this case has gained significant attention online with respect to whether the parents should have been charged and the likelihood of whether they will be eventually convicted of involuntary manslaughter. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to provide you with a factual summary of the incidents and the facts leading up to the shootings, and then I'm going to give you a summary of the law on the issue of manslaughter, involuntary versus voluntary manslaughter, and murder. And then we'll have a little chat about my view on whether it's likely, based on the limited facts that have been released to date, that the prosecution will be able to successfully convict Jennifer and James, being the parents of Ethan. So let's jump right in. You may be able to hear my little helper in the background making noises from time to time. Maxwell, say hello to everyone. Oh. This is the high school shooter, Ethan. Oakland County Police prosecutor decided to charge Ethan Crumbley's parents, Jennifer and James, with involuntary manslaughter. Many prosecutors in the past have decided against prosecuting parents who simply own or gift guns to their children in similar circumstances, and so the police prosecutor's decision to do so has caused significant attention in this case. So, is there something different in this case, or does it provide evidence of the system changing in America to become harder on parents of child shooters? I see a lot of people incorrectly alleging online that the prosecutor has charged and convicted the parents in respect of the fact that their son shot all these students, in respect of their son's conduct, but that's incorrect. The parents have been charged with, in respect of their own conduct, and whether their own conduct, whether they could have reasonably foreseen that them buying the gun for their son, that his mental health was questionable enough, that they could have reasonably foreseen that he might have used the gun to shoot people and to cause harm. So the parents they've very much been charged in respect of their own conduct, not in respect of the sole issue that their son shot these students. So that's something really important to clarify from the beginning. Ethan has been charged with murder, which is completely different. It's a different legal test. It's a different charge to involuntary manslaughter. So in a nutshell, what the prosecution must prove is that Jennifer and James could have reasonably foreseen that Ethan might use that gun to kill people. And it's actually quite a tricky legal question to answer. The prosecution is arguing yes, the parents knowingly armed a child who they knew had some serious emotional problems, and they were warned by people at school that he was searching for ammunition online. They didn't search their son's backpack when they came to speak with the son, the counsellor, and the school after he drew some concerning pictures. And they didn't take him home after his conduct and mental health was raised by the school. The defense lawyers will argue that the answer is no. They couldn't have reasonably foreseen that he would use the gun that was purchased for him to kill people. In America, it's very common for people to have guns, for families to have guns. The defense team will likely argue that they couldn't reasonably foresee that he would use his gift to take it to school and to shoot people dead. The defense team will probably also argue that millions and millions of families and kids have guns, and it's not reasonably foreseeable that those children will take the guns to school and cause a mass shooting. So I think a lot of the legal question in this case will come down to Ethan's mental health, the knowledge that his parents had regarding his mental health, and what you'll see is potentially a desire or a planned intention to cause harm using the gun. So I think a lot of it in future during the trial will come down to their knowledge of their son's mental health. Oakland County filed involuntary manslaughter charges against Ethan's parents based on the fact that twice on the day of the shootings, their son's interests in weapons, so his drawings, which we'll talk about later, and his searching of ammunition were brought to their attention, and they failed to intervene on the day of the shooting. So they didn't check his bag, they didn't check that the gun had been taken from from the house. So this is what the prosecution is basing the charges on. According to the police prosecutor, on Black Friday, Ethan went with his father, James, to purchase a 9mm gun. Ethan posted a photo of the gun on his social media that same day. The caption of the photo was, "My new beauty," with a love heart emoji. Ethan's mum, Jennifer, posted that the gun was a Christmas present and that she and the father, James, had purchased that Christmas present for Ethan. She posted on social media that she and Ethan had enjoyed a Mother's Sunday at the shooting range that days leading up to the murders, the killings. On the following Monday, 9 November, the day before the shooting, a teacher said she saw a boy searching online for ammunition, which prompted a meeting with school officials, so the boy was Ethan. The school left a voicemail and sent an email to the parents of Ethan. However, the mother, Jennifer, did not respond to the school. Jennifer texted her son, though, after she received the correspondence from the school, and she said, "LOL, I'm not mad at you. You just have to learn not to get caught." On Tuesday morning of 29 November, a teacher found a worksheet on Ethan's desk and took a photo of the worksheet. The drawing on the worksheet included a man pointing a gun and words written across the top saying, "The thoughts won't stop, help me." There was also a picture of a bullet with words "blood everywhere" above it. There was also a person drawn between the gun and the bullet. The person appears to have been shot twice. Ethan wrote on the worksheet, "My life is useless." The teacher was very concerned, and so they contacted the dean of students and the school counsellor. Jennifer and James Crumbley were called for an emergency meeting at the school. Ethan was placed in the counselling room with his backpack. The teacher presented the photo to the counsellor and superintendent, but Ethan had already scratched out a lot of the drawing. The teacher explained what they'd seen. Ethan told the teachers that the drawing was of a video game he had been playing. He said he was practicing drawing because he wanted to start a career as a video designer. Ethan stayed in the office for around 90 minutes working on his science assignment. According to the superintendent of the school counsellor didn't believe that he would harm others based on his conduct and his demeanour. Jennifer and James arrived at the school at 10:30 a.m. They asked Ethan whether he had thoughts or a desire to harm himself or others, and based on his answers, they all assumed that Ethan was not a threat. The Crumbleys resisted the idea of Ethan leaving school to return home to an empty house. The school told the parents to get Ethan into counselling within 48 hours. The school then permitted Ethan to return to class because he had no previous disciplinary history. At around 12:01 p.m, Ethan emerged from the school bathroom yielding a gun that his dad had bought for him 4 days earlier. Ethan opened fire in the hallway, killing 4 students, injuring 6 students and 1 teacher. After the shooting made news, Jennifer Crumbley texted Ethan saying, and I quote, "Ethan, don't do it." Minutes later, James Crumbley, Ethan's father, calls 911 to report that their gun was missing and that he believed his son may be the shooter. Ethan's parents claim that the gun was stored in a locked drawer in their bedroom. Let's now take a look at the applicable and relevant law from Michigan, America. First, let's take a look at first-degree homicide. First-degree murder or homicide is defined by the killing perpetrated by means of poison, lying, or in wait of any other purposeful, premeditated killing. So the key here is that it's an intended, premeditated murder. This is what Ethan has been charged with, and the planning doesn't have to be weeks or days in advance. It can be, but it can also be minutes or seconds in advance of the act having occurred. Manslaughter is different to murder because it involves killing without malice. It involves killing without a premeditated, pre-planned conception. It's defined as killing another human being without malice or forethought, or otherwise in circumstances not accounting to murder. There are 2 types of manslaughter. There's voluntary manslaughter and then there's involuntary manslaughter, which is what the parents have been charged with. Now in Michigan, there's no statute, so government written law. So what they turn to is the common law. So previous cases which have defined and given examples of voluntary manslaughter versus involuntary manslaughter in the past. Voluntary manslaughter is an intentional killing in the heat of the moment where someone is provoked and they don't have time to settle down and contain their emotion. So it's those heat of the moment, heat of passion types of crimes which might constitute voluntary manslaughter. The key components of establishing voluntary manslaughter is that the incident which causes the provocation has to happen immediately before the crime is committed, and the person does not have time to catch their emotions and to think things through. So they're emotional and triggered at the time the offense is committed. This is different to methodically planning and premeditating what you're going to do to someone. It's kind of a provocation and an immediate reaction where you don't have time to link it up and to think and premeditate. Involuntary manslaughter involves the negligent killing of another, an accidental or non-intentional death. For example, you drink drive. You know that drink driving, you're less capable of maneuvering a vehicle, so you're putting others at risk on the road. This is a reckless behavior. Nonetheless, you get behind the wheel when you're drunk and you crash into someone and you kill them. You didn't intend to kill someone, but you did because of your reckless conduct. You drove the vehicle knowing that you were impaired by alcohol, and general society knows that it impairs your ability, your motor skills. You made that decision, and your reckless conduct resulted in the murder of someone, in the killing of someone. Another example of involuntary manslaughter might include somebody lighting a fire. So they know that by lighting the fire, the house could catch on fire and there's people inside, or it's close to a house that could potentially catch on fire, but they didn't intend for the house to catch on fire. So their act is so dangerous that they know it's a possibility, I'm being reckless here, but I'm still going to do it anyway. So they're not intending to kill, but they do intend to light the fire, which could result in the death. With involuntary manslaughter, you're looking for acts that are so dangerous that someone might think in their head, this could lead to someone being really injured or killed before they commit the act. In Michigan, the police prosecutor must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a high threshold in criminal cases, that the parents acted in a grossly negligent manner, which is a pretty high threshold test. They must prove that they acted in a grossly negligent manner without lawful justification. Proving that someone else's acts or omissions caused death is not an easy task for the prosecution. In this case, Ethan's parents must prove that Ethan's intentional acts, the shootings, did not break the chain of causation from the time that they purchased the gun for him. The jury instruction on causation explains that it is not enough for the defendant's acts made it possible for the death to occur. In order to find that the death was caused by the defendant, you must find beyond a reasonable doubt that the death was the natural and necessary result of the defendant's acts, so the parents' acts in buying him the gun, the storage of the gun, etc. Proving that the parents gave Ethan the gun is not even close to enough to meet the threshold of involuntary manslaughter on the part of the parents. And that's why I think more evidence will come out via looking at phone records, mental health records, speaking to other witnesses, and that might change what happens in this case. But at this point in time, it's a pretty high threshold test, and it might be difficult for the prosecution to make out without delving further into what the parents knew and some other facts around this case. The police prosecutor will likely rely on the fact that the gun was not properly hidden and secured, and the defense team will probably rely on the fact that millions of American kids have access to a gun, and he had no previous disciplinary action, such that the school even supported, he can go back to class. They will probably argue that just because he searched for ammunition, he could have been searching for ammunition because he wanted to use ammunition at the shooting range next time him and his mum went and shot guns. So there are some pretty good arguments that the defense might make with respect to the parents' conduct. The other thing is the prosecution might say, well, the parents knew he had a gun. They were shown these disturbing images and they didn't check their son's backpack, but the school also didn't check the backpack or ask them to check the backpack. So there are some good things on the defense side here with respect to the involuntary murder charge. In the parents' defense, you have a formal meeting with the school counselor, the superintendent, the child, and everyone allowed him to return back to class. So I think a lot of this will be based on what the parents knew that the school might not have known. For example, was there a history of mental illness? Were there more indications that family and friends recognized that go to the fact that the parents really shouldn't have bought this person a gun? Or were they kind of surprised, just like the school? You have a photo, a drawing, and he says, look, I want to be a game designer. He has an excuse for that. Is that enough to say that they should have known more than the school? I think it'll come down to a lot of the evidence of what the parents knew that the school didn't know, because everyone in that room, the people from the school and the parents, allowed him to go back to class just before the shootings. Say the parents didn't lock the gun up properly. It was open. Is that sufficient to constitute a crime? Well, in many states in America, yes, it is. There are severe penalties for people not appropriately locking the gun away. But in this area, in Michigan, they don't have child prevention laws that are like that. So based on the evidence to date, the parents have not admitted that it was unlocked. So we don't know where that evidence will take the case at this point in time. Back to the point that a lot of people on social media and publicly have made about the parents not checking his backpack at the school meeting. The argument might be raised by the defense that apparently the dad didn't know that the gun was missing until he went home and found that it was missing. However, the other argument is, well, you're seeing a child drawing images of a shooting and searching for ammunition, and you've just bought him a gun. Perhaps you should have checked his bag while you were at the school. However, the defense might argue that he had no previous disciplinary history. To their knowledge, he was fine mentally, and they genuinely believed that he was drawing a video game because he wanted to be a video designer. They genuinely had no thought that he would intended that it was in his capability or his mindset that he would have brought the gun to school to do this. The parents' attitude seemed to kind of be, the school being overly cautious, we understand, but Ethan's fine. That kind of thing. Like maybe they genuinely didn't believe that their son was capable of this. So this is pretty important. So when the prosecutor announced that the parents of Ethan would be charged, they withdrew $4,000 of their cash savings, and then they left their house and hid in a warehouse in Detroit. So they absconded, and this does not look good. So usually if you're guilty or you feel like you've done something wrong, often the prosecution will use this as evidence of intention or knowledge of guilty conduct. So the fact that when they found out they were going to be charged, they ran away, they absconded, that's pretty important. The parents kind of provide an okay explanation. They say that because of the attention this case was getting on social media, people found out where they were living, and that's why they absconded. So, I mean, that's believable. A lot of people are really upset about, the mum's social media posts about buying the gun and all of this. So, I mean, that's kind of believable that they absconded because they were concerned that people were going to target them and their house. So they were concerned for their safety. In my view, based on the evidence so far, I think the prosecution has a difficult case in proving involuntary manslaughter on the part of the parents. However, this might change depending on evidence that comes forward regarding their knowledge of the child. So Ethan's mental health, his phone records, that type of evidence could change my opinion. Whether they just left the gun protector at home open, these types of things might change my view, but I think it is a very high threshold, difficult test to make out. However, it must be noted that there is precedence in convicting parents of similar cases. In the 2020 case of Jamel James, he was convicted with involuntary manslaughter when his 6-year-old saw him twirling his gun, then got the gun and then shot another child. The key difference between that case and this case is the age of the shooter. Of course, our fellow is much, much older than a 6-year-old, and so he would have been able to see where the parents are storing it, perhaps go and get the key. He might have watched them and got the key. We don't know yet how he got the gun that was supposed to be under lock and key. So that is different to leaving the gun accessible to a child, a 6-year-old, who can't even have the mental capacity to commit a crime. So the difference between that case and this case is definitely the age of the shooter. This case involves such a tragedy, so close to Christmas. What do you think about this case? Have you been following it? Do you think that his parents should be convicted or even charged with involuntary manslaughter? Let me know your opinion in the comment section below. If you like this video, don't forget to actually like the video. And if you like this content, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Merry Christmas.